in a session where they are teaching their peers, and they say, well, yeah, how could I have done it better? So it's a trigger event, as it were.
Junior faculty, they are put through a kind of a formal introduction, a lengthier one. But it is very important even for senior people who join us to know the NUS vision and mission with respect to teaching and learning, the culture and so on. So one of the ways to do it is through a short introduction program. And the other thing we do, because the numbers are relatively small, the senior faculty joining the institution, the number of people are in low numbers. So what we try to do is to have one-on-one meetings with them in cafeterias and so on, to talk to them and to tell them about the institutional goals, the culture that is there and all that. And what Prof. Pan mentioned, using them as resource people, is a way, it's like reverse osmosis. They think they are contributing by sharing their experiences and so on, like we are doing. But at the same time, you learn a lot about what is going on, what do people think, what are their real worries, what are their real problems, things like that, when they interact with an audience who they are so-called trying to teach. So that kind of tells them what is it, and they reflect upon their own performances in their classrooms and all that. So we take a kind of very personal approach in dealing with senior people, try to avoid them, at least initially, till they come into the system, to herd them into groups. It's better that they are acknowledged individually if time permits, right? And then bring them to institutional culture, they'll be very productive and contributive.
In fact, in our on-campus programs, already we have got a, we call it intensive teaching workshop, which is compulsory for all the faculty members. And as they were saying, like for the senior faculty members who don't go, ask them to go and present, but we put them in the resource side. So it is very correct that if you force, because we have, my own experience says, I have been involved with ITW for some time. Particularly the faculty members coming with little bit of experience with PDF and kind of, there is a resistance to go through this process to start with. That is inbuilt. So that we have to overcome. So we make it somehow at some point of time it cannot be completely voluntary. So that's why we make it compulsory for the new entrants to go through this process. For others it is not. So all faculty members who have joined recently, every semester or sometimes depending on the numbers we conduct it every year. So 15, 20 faculty, they go through this process. But we have remodeled it to make it more effective. As videography, etc., already we do it. Maybe off-campus we have not done it as yet. So you can learn from the on-campus programs how to go about it.
Can I add something here?
Yes.
Not an exception. There's a lot of things when you talked about senior faculty. As a representative of senior faculty, I should say something now. In fact, when we have conducted this intensive teaching workshop, I found that even junior faculty remote. It depends upon how you turn up. And they have done that, we have seen they come that, they think that they know everything. So to all these people, whether senior or junior, the message must go is that a teacher, if he stops learning, he becomes a poor teacher. A teacher must be a good student first of all. And when we are going to institutionalize this TLC, probably the administration must send a message to everybody that there are certain measures being taken and wholehearted cooperation from everybody is very much required. How you deal with senior or junior? Certainly, the TLC members will come to know by their own experience. In fact, certain experiments in BITS I'd like to share, at least one of them. There was a course called Circuit Theory. The deputy director of the institute was one of the teachers. and 10 teachers used to teach, and as you know very well, people can register in any one of them. The deputy director used to get 150 students in his class. But a teaching assistant joined the next semester, and 150 students went to that teaching assistant, and the deputy director got only 50 students. He learned his lesson. Of course, he was sportive. He understood what is happening, and there used to be a lot of discussion among the group, and still, no offense meant for the deputy director. People know about him, and he held his forte as a senior teacher, and he certainly contributed, and he also learned how the students are being attracted, the students are the younger faculty members, they attract the students. So the game has to be learned, and in this, everybody is on the same platform accordingly. We have found this again and again. In fact, it is BITS. BITS told everybody that look, when you come here, you have your qualifications, but you have to learn the tricks of the trade. In this country, if somebody has to go and teach in a school, he needs a bachelor of education. Otherwise, he can't teach. Whereas in a university, we tell them that, okay, you have got your MTech, PhD, you go to the class on the next day. BITS said no, they need some inputs. That is how we started this micro-teaching concept. And that's all I have.
I just want to mention, it's about people. It's not about senior faculty or junior faculty per se. It's about people. And when we try to make this program compulsory for new people, oftentimes we see is they kind of, some of them, let's say we get 50 in the group, there'll be 3 or 4 who don't want to be there. Yeah. More than that, but there are 3 or 4 people who will create trouble. They try to challenge the facilitators, try to throw things off the rail and so on. And it's those are the people who we have to concentrate upon actually, to try to get them understand why we are doing this, why is it good for them, and why is it good for the student community they are trying to serve. So it's about people, and people come in with all kinds of mental models. They hear different stories, and that's where the contributions of heads of departments are very important, because they are a very important point of leverage within the system. Here you have instruction division and so on. So a few things, first is the senior management should signal properly, and they should walk the talk. It's not enough to put up something and say this is what it is, and then everything else that happens on the ground is very different. People are smart people, they can see what works and what doesn't work. So there must be this alignment. And secondly, people, the policies and other reward systems, recognition systems should be in tune with the mission. If you're not serious about it, don't even put it up. Right? But if you're serious about it, the entire set of things should work well. The role of heads of departments is quite critical. They cannot say things that are contrary to what is the articulated vision and mission of the university. Alright, so the faculty members are very much influenced in many cases by the heads of departments. In most institutions, that's the case. So those people is something that you have to buy in. The TLC people should dialogue with them and kind of get them on board, at least in a very broad sense. So it's people's management actually, that's the key.
Actually, I have an experience.
Yes, yeah, go ahead please. Sir.
Intensive workshops. So it is compulsory, just Professor Rama's point to note. It is compulsory for all, whether you are senior or junior. Sometimes seniors are also ready to sit. Even when I was there, I was young only. But senior professor used to sit in my classes. How Shankar you are able to get the best teacher every time? What is the secrecy behind it? So please come and sit in my classes. I told them, my style of teaching is not standing on the dais, but it is interactive type of teaching. That's how they are attracted towards that. So, because I know NUS is a very big university, established university, you have a separate dedicated TLC center, some people are working there. So how to institutionalize, for example, in our campus, in Dubai campus, we need a separate establishment for that. So I think if that is there, we can do things better. But otherwise, if we are working, we are having our teaching assignments, we have to guide the students on all those things. Is it how to go about it? That's what I want to know from you.
Yeah, I'll actually be talking a little bit more about it, but getting people involved, right? This is the main drift of your question, right? I hate to tell you this, but it's hard work. It is hard work, getting people. And at the end of the day, carrots are not in, I mean, using the stick doesn't work always, but you do need also to have some of the stick. Even though I say we don't want to do things that are prescriptive, but you need to have some muscle behind the initiatives that you put out. So just to give you an example, the teaching awards that Laksh has been hogging for several years. Now for several years it was just recognition. Right? Every year we pick best teachers and then we have a ceremony and we give them some kind of a piece of paper in recognition. And for several years I was trying to convince the provost, you know, it's not quite enough. They put in a lot of hard work for this and all they get is a piece of paper, and you notice that many of them are not bothering to come and collect the piece of paper. Okay? So we need to put your money where your mouth is. So I finally managed to persuade the provost that yes, there should be some kind of monetary award. I don't think people are being mercenary, but you know, we live in a world where things have value, and monetary value is one of those things. We have to recognize that. So yes, you do have to have some kind of incentive because people do respond to incentive, and the incentives have to be quite real, not just a sheet of paper and kind of token recognition. Right? So that would be where you get your institutional support, where your institution must really demonstrate that they mean business, as Laksh says. It's no good just putting in place an initiative and then leaving it, and then the TLC will have a very difficult time, which was my initial experience, right? Yes, in the mission statement, this is what the university wants, but on the ground, it was very difficult to get people involved because it was in it, what's in it for me? And I can quite understand that question because new faculty come in, they have a tenure clock ticking, they have other things that they need to worry about, and in a research-intensive university, the important thing is research, right? Your teaching wasn't really quantitatively measured. Sure, we had student feedback, but it didn't count as much. It didn't count as much as your research. So people focus on what matters. Right? So management has to show this is also something that matters. Teaching is something that you need to do if you're going to be retained at the university. So I would say getting people involved, first of all, you get your management to give you that support, to actually push it behind you. And then of course, you could also appeal to their better nature, to appeal to their desire to improve themselves, and this is where we come and talk about the dialogue part of it, the sharing part of it. But that alone, I'm sorry to say, won't be quite sufficient. It will be the ideal state. In the perfect world, yes, people want to get together to improve themselves as teachers. But in the post-Lapsarian world, where there are many demands, people prioritize, and they prioritize according to a reward system, which must be commensurate with what you're trying to achieve.
The other thing that NUS also did was, we are a research-intensive university, so at some point, as long as you have your research targets achieved, you would be promoted. But then it also wanted to send the signal that teaching is important. So when we there is a certain percentage, so you need to have, okay, you can be very good at research, not so good at teaching, or not at all good at teaching, then probably you won't be promoted. So you need to show some certain level of commitment to teaching as well. So these were kind of instituted to signal that teaching is equally important as research. So you can be a very good teacher and excellent teacher, outstanding teacher, and you can get your promotion even though you have very minimal research. So that's possible too. So you need to signal that both tracks are possible, and then you will see that teaching also becomes important.
Yeah, so the point is threshold performance, minimal performance in one, and the peak performance in another is kind of okay for promotions and tenure and so on, right? So that's something that your university has to establish. What is the minimum you would tolerate? Anything less than that, it didn't matter. So there were cases recently, last 3 years ago, where people were publishing in Nature and so on, things like that, but they were not meeting the threshold performance in teaching. These people were not promoted to full professor. 8, 10 years ago, that could happen. You just publish in Nature and things like that, it didn't matter. But the management sent that signal. That signaling from the management is very important. So the top has to support you, the bottom has to support you, and we are like, the sculptures in temples. You have sculptures like this, which seems to hold the whole tower, but it is not holding. Actually, it is held from the bottom, it is supported from the top. So TLCs are good social platforms in some sense, okay? But it is up to you, once you understand the institution vision and mission, work with the community, with the support of the top, work with the community to kind of make things happen. And I think a lot can be done in that sense. Signaling from the management also came in the form of salary adjustments and performance bonus at NUS is now split into contributions on teaching, research and service. Previously, if you did well in research, you could get salary increases and performance bonuses, but that has also been carefully taken care of. A very important signal is for our, it is probably happening in campuses here, but I just want to say what NUS is doing. The top management comes to our professional development programs and other teaching and learning events. Somebody from the provost's office comes. That is a very, very good signal to the community that the provost's office is willing to walk the talk to a certain extent. And our teaching awards, right, our awards, university awards, it includes awards for research, teaching and service all on the same platform on the same day. So we don't have something separate for research and something for teaching, and then people will say 450 student people went there, only 35 people coming here, they will start doing all these kinds of things. So university also did away with that, having them separate. So for a long time, the university awards is recognizes on the same platform, and citations are read out for everybody and so on. So there are lots of small and big things we can do to make sure that the participation is very healthy and good. And we generally don't hope for everybody to come also. Large university, as Pan pointed out, people have various kinds of duties, their priorities for that semester, for that year and so on. So we are not hoping for everybody to be part of the revolution. We just want healthy numbers. We try our best to reach out to different people. One of the things we also do is to bring good researchers into the TLC platform. You don't define the scope as only teaching and learning. You can look at teaching and learning in a very broad sense. So we try to bring star researchers also to come to our center to facilitate things on graduate research or things like that. And once they come, the first difficult thing for them is to come into the teaching and learning center. Once they put their foot in, they like to come back again because they understand what we are doing, they are more familiar. So star researchers also should be allowed the TNL platform. You should not leave out somebody saying, oh, that person is very research oriented. Find ways of bringing her or him into the teaching and learning center fold, and you will see that they are likely to contribute in other ways that benefit the student community. Because you have a graduate program involving student researchers, your undergraduate students also do research projects and so on. So star researchers can be a very good motivating factor. So expand the pool, always work on that. But don't be disheartened if only 20% of the people show active interest. That is bound to happen. Alright? Any other things?
I just want to expand on what Laksh has been saying. It's true that there is an institutional mandate required for both teaching and research, and all reward mechanisms should take both into account. But I also want to end with a little bit of a provocative question. Not that I don't want it to be discussed now, but just to throw that seed. Are research and teaching so watertight compartments? Should we look at it that way? Does research does it contribute anything to my teaching or not? I think that's also something that TLC should facilitate that discussion, so that this so-called two worlds can overlap or perhaps merge.
So from the BITS point of view, I think your question was how to institutionalize it. Now, you see, the whole concept of TLC, it took us some time to work quite a bit hard, to gather enough information, then interact with the management and make them understand, the need for that. Similarly, now if you want to go ahead, as I was telling in the beginning, this group will have to work very hard. We have to show, initially we have to show some positive, outcomes. Then only it will be, because at this point of it is very nascent stage. We'll have to show some fruits, then only it will be easier to, influence the management to come up with a separate kind of, TLC centers, new buildings, etc. as well. Maybe, you have some idea like that. That will be coming not immediately. We cannot have the structure first, then start activities. Let us show some activities, then only we can think in future for growing it.
So I was actually going to ask a question very similar to what Professor Sarkar was now alluding to.
Check.
So I was just going to talk about the same point which Professor Sarkar was now alluding to. Now, at a very crucial time, QAA team has transferred responsibility to TLC. Now, by the end of the day, we need to come with a calendar of activities. Now, in BITS, a faculty has many hats. And when Professor Samavedam came last year, at the start of this year, I guess, I asked him this question, I remember, and I would like you to elaborate a little more on that today. Now, the structure of Teaching Learning Center and NUS Singapore has a director and associate director for full time. Now, as Professor Sarkar said, it will take some time to even have a structure of that kind. Now, are there examples where other universities where people teach, they have many roles to play, faculty, along with that take part in teaching learning center? And if that is so, what should be when we begin? Give us some idea as to what can be done minimally, or if not, we need definitely a structure, even to start with, to attain some quality. This is something in my mind. So please address that question.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah. So the multiple roles, right, or the multiple hats we wear as university profs is a fairly common thing across many places. Okay. So we all do it, whether we are in the teaching and learning center or other places. Our expertise and our services are called for at many places. Yes, we have to do our teaching to the classes we do. We have to conduct our research, also take part in administrative work, committees and all that. As far as the teaching and learning center is concerned, I think NUS has gone through a spectrum of models. If I'm wrong, Prof. Daphne Pan can correct me, but when she was heading the Center for Development of Teaching and Learning, they had the director and they had a set of associate directors. And then they had affiliates as well. So I think probably she had 4 or 5 associate directors drawn from different faculties, one from each faculty. Okay, so that is what it was. So there was a set of people who are associate directors who come from various domains, right? And the director was also full time at that time. Your position was full time position at the center. So that's something that I wanted to know. So she was the director of the center, but she was teaching in her ELL department, English Literature and Language department, Language and Literature department. So she was doing that as well. All right, and then she would be called upon to head other kinds of initiatives from the university. It could be curriculum reform, it could be something within her faculty or department, and so on. So it's a question for us to balance things. Sometimes you could negotiate with the provost's office to say, this is what you would like to focus on in the first year or second year and so on, and then gradually you would do other things and stuff like that. So it's open to negotiation. So at the time when I headed the Center for Development of Teaching and Learning, I was supposed to be 100% full-time, and for a good period of time I did not have even deputy directors to work with me. But I had an excellent staff, the office was good. And then we drew facilitators from all the faculties and departments, from different faculties and departments to run our programs. So my job was more strategic in nature. What is the direction the center should take? What kind of activities and events will the faculty members most benefit from? And I had to find from the organization who would be able to provide facilitation of those events and programs. If in very rare cases I could not find anybody inside, I would go for external people, very, very rarely. So my job was to do this after consulting people, kind of find facilitators and organize these events and so on. So even when I did that, I made sure I was doing my regular amount of teaching. The reason is, one is, I like teaching, so pardon me for using the word I, but I have to say my experience, so I'm using the word I more often. So you got to do what you enjoy doing. Plus, it is a very, very important signal for the community. I did not want to be a director, like Prof. Pan also was teaching when she was the director. So it's very important for me to go to the class, teach, and find out how the current students are. Plus, I kind of tried different experiments in my class with technology, without technology, new pedagogical methods and all that, simply to establish credibility with the people I was serving. Otherwise, people will say, okay, you're sitting in the director's office, when is the last time you went to class? And how are you able to say these things? Why are you saying these things are useful? Why are you saying these things are not? So establishing credibility is very important, and you establish that through first-hand experience. So the point is, it is open to negotiation. As far as the provost's office was concerned, the director does not have to teach. Just run the center. That was the mandate given. But I knew that it will not work. It might work for the provost, but it will not work for me as a director of the center, because constituents expect different things from the director of the center. So the point is, you create your own mix. At some point in time, you might say, this whole semester I'm going to just put it on TLC. I'm not going to do anything else. Maybe that will be a phase like that for you. After which you can kind of relax and do things that you ought to do. The main thing is, if you lose credibility with the ground, it is disaster. And the teaching and learning center will become very, very ineffective. All right? Because they will go by the cues and signals that you send out as a person there. So have a pool of facilitators. That is an important job of the teaching and learning center. Get into conversations with people, find out what they're able to contribute, and bring them to the center to organize these things. I don't know if I answered your question well, so I'll pass it on to Prof. Pan and other people. If you have any questions, please continue asking.
I don't think I have that much to add really, but essentially that was my experience. I negotiated when I was told to set up the center. I said, well, but I don't want to give up my teaching because that's what I came into academia for. And so they reluctantly agreed, yes, okay, you can continue teaching, but don't ever complain that you're overworked, because you're your own business. But for the same reason that Laksh gave, I thought it was silly for someone who go on to talk to people about teaching when they themselves are not teaching. And I felt that being out of touch with the classroom would not give me the credibility to talk to others about teaching in a classroom. So it was as simple as that. So I took it on simply because I thought, simply because I liked it, and simply also because I thought it was necessary for me to function effectively as a teaching learning facilitator. As for the formation of a team at CDTL, that was the quickest way I could think of to get together with a team. Right? Initially, it was just supposed to be a one-woman show with me. And I had done that in my in the center that I ran in the faculty. I was a one-woman show running the teaching and learning resource unit in the arts faculty. But I thought, now that it's a university-wide initiative, I need to broaden the scope. And one way of doing that would be to invite one colleague from each faculty to come and join me as associate director. And these people continued teaching in their own faculty. They were supposed to be 75% at the home faculty and 25% at the center. But in effect, 75 and 25, as you know, don't always add up to 100. more like 200%. But it was invaluable having this team, right? Because they were, for me, the people through which I could get to know what's happening on the ground, what's happening in the respective faculties, which heads are cooperative, which heads are a little less cooperative, So they were invaluable. Apart from, of course, also the speed with which I could get together the team. So that's why I had that team of associate directors. I feel a little sorry for Lakshmi. He didn't have that team and he had to run the show. No wonder you lost weight. So for a start, you might want to consider co-opting these people. Enthusiastic colleagues from other faculties can do a great deal for you in, facilitizing within their own faculty.
Just a very short note,